Hey everyone! June 2019 marks my first time at Pride. Yay! I don't know where my rainbow flag is, but I have a trans flag for my lovely wife who's Victoria, and she is trans male to female. So, I don't know where the rainbow one is. Anyway, I got to go to Pride LA, and I also went to Pride Orange County, and here's how it went.
Happy Pride LA! Cheers, bitches! Woo! Yay, Disney! Woo! Yes!
Side note, I decided to put this Mickey on my skin rather than on my dress because I thought it would kind of get lost in the dress with all the colors. So I put it on my skin, and I put sunscreen on, and I stayed in the shade, and I really wasn't trying to get burned or even a tan line. But when I took it off later, I ended up getting burned, and it had a line around the Mickey. So I decided, well, I'll call it my hidden Mickey. But you should always wear sunscreen, you should stay in the shade, and I'm just gonna wear more sunscreen next time.
Disney just went by over that way because we're celebrating the magic in everyone.
Now, like maybe some of you, I was raised conservative evangelical Christian. I was raised to believe that if you were a member of the LGBTQ community or an ally, you couldn't be a true Christian and that you were in sin. May it come as no surprise to you that I don't believe that anymore, and I'll get to that in a few minutes, but I do want to tell a story from when I was a kid. So I was probably about 6 years old. I had some Barbies. I didn't actually have any Ken dolls. We didn't have a lot of money, and I just would always get Barbies as gifts. Nobody ever really gave me Ken dolls. And so I was about 6 years old, maybe 7. I wanted my Barbies to be able to go on dates, but I didn't have any Ken dolls. And I was always taught, girls go on dates with boys. And so, from Disney shows and from Nickelodeon and all that, you're kind of taught, especially in the 90s, like girls go on dates with boys. That was like the norm. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just pretend that one of these Barbies is a boy. And so I had my Barbies go on dates with each other, like two girls, but one of them in my mind was a boy. Not like it would have mattered if it wasn't, but that honestly was what happened in my mind. And so, my parents saw me and they said, "What are you doing, Bailey?" And I said, "Oh, they're just going on a date, these two Barbies." And they said, no, you can't do that. And I said, "No, but one of the Barbies is a boy." And they said, no, Bailey, you can't do that. Only girls can go on dates with boys. And I said, "Well, I don't have any boys." Needless to say, it was not very long before I started getting Ken dolls as gifts and I could have Barbies go on dates with Ken. But that memory has stuck with me because that was just kind of how my childhood was like. Now, to my parents' credit, they are very loving. And obviously, as I showed in this picture, this is me and my mom at Pride Orange County. My mom totally supports me and my wife, Victoria. My dad, who's no longer with us, he never knew about me and Victoria because she hadn't come out yet. And so I wholeheartedly believe that if he was still with us today, he would support me and Victoria and that he would have come around. The church culture that I was in for 29 years and that I was an active participant in said that if you were LGBTQ plus or an ally, you were in sin and going to hell.
That sex is for marriage, and marriage is for one man and one woman. What that means is that all sex outside of heterosexual marriage is a sin.
Now, obviously, from the title of this video, I don't believe that anymore. I have done a ton of prayer, biblical research, and talking to people in the LGBTQ community, including my wife, Victoria, who's transgender male to female and who came out to me at the end of 2017. And we had been married for 5 years when she came out to me. And it was kind of during this whole coming out process that I did a lot of research, and I just came to terms with not believing that it was a sin anymore, and that God makes people who they are and he makes them beautiful no matter their gender or their sexual orientation. And I also believe that we serve an extremely creative God. We serve a God who's made people of all different races, of all different languages. He's made so many different plants. He's made so many different types of animals. He's made so many different ways that we can live, like animals that are invertebrates that don't have spines, and animals that do have spines, and animals that can breathe underwater, and animals that can't breathe underwater, and animals that can fly. Why would such a creative God limit us to two genders? Male, if you look like a male, and female, if you look like a female, and only one type of sexual orientation, which is straight. I've done far too much research about the word homosexuality in the original Greek that the Bible was written in to mean something totally different than the consensual relationship that we have today. I totally encourage people to do that research themselves, look up what it actually means, because it doesn't mean what maybe your pastor has said it means. It means something very different. And I've seen far too much fruits of the Spirit come alive when people embrace who God created them to be. You can't be in sin and be fully expressing love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And people in the LGBTQ community, when they're finally able to be the sexual orientation or the gender that they are, they express these things fuller than they ever did before. And I've seen it with my own eyes in my wife, Victoria. What I do believe is that people misuse religious doctrine to spread hate, that people justify their fear or their uncomfortability or their unfamiliarity with people who are LGBTQ, that they use that to spread hate on people that are LGBTQ. They justify it with the Bible. The same way that people in our history have justified slavery with the Bible, something that we would all find appalling today. Side note, Jesus said nothing about LGBTQ being sinful. And what I personally believe is that Jesus is God, and he has created and loves people of all different genders and sexual orientations, including me. Now, as far as my place in the LGBTQ community, I consider myself queer. I love Victoria, and I grew up always believing that I was heterosexual, mostly because I didn't want to explore anything. I was afraid to explore anything because I was told it was a damnable sin. And so I would just always be like, no, I like men. And even though innately I was attracted to men, like actually like inside, even if it was allowed, even if like homosexuality wasn't condemned in my church or whatever, I still innately liked men. But then if my thoughts ever went astray, it was like, no, Bailey, you can't think that way. That's wrong. Like, that's what I would say to myself. But now that my wife Victoria has come out as transgender and she is presenting and being fully who she is, which is a woman. I'm trying to figure out my sexual orientation alongside with her. I love her very much. I don't want to be without her. I don't want to be with anyone else. I sexually consider myself queer. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get comments like, repent now, or you're going to hell, or the ever patronizing, I'll pray for you, as if you're not able to talk to God yourself, but they're good enough that they can talk to God, and they are true Christians, so they can talk to God. Honestly, I'm not here to debate anybody, but what I am here to do is to spread love and compassion and to affirm that you can be a Christian, an LGBTQ plus, or an ally. Let me know in the comments below if you're LGBTQ or an ally and a Christian. And if you had one, what was your transition like from intolerance to acceptance of people of LGBTQ orientation or yourself? And of course, subscribe to my channel, click that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time. Skittles, taste the rainbow.